Well, a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world, and a welcome to the channel. Now, as always, I do a transcript, but I tend to deviate from it, and I'm doing this on the first slide. I am very hopeful today, and this isn't part of my transcript, that we will be uninterrupted by my dear little Toby dog, who I have just bathed, okay? He's basically licking his wounds. He doesn't like being bathed. So hopefully he will let me complete this video as he recovers from it and we can get it done quite quickly. Anyway, before I get into the actual content today, because we're looking at a few things, I've had quite a bit happening this week. I just want to remind people, I put timing chapters in the description so you can jump from one area to the other for whatever interests you. Anyway, this week has been a chaotic week for me. I say chaotic, but busy, okay? Busy in good ways. And it looks like that's going to continue over until next week. Now, of course, as I go through my week, there's always things that I think, oh, I must discuss this on the yarning. I must talk about this to people. You know, other people may have experiences. They might want to add to my thoughts, you know, which are basically public reflections at different times. And then there's other things that come up just in the course of the day. Now, today I'm actually going to be talking about my qualifications because I'm leading somewhere with it, if you can stick with it. Okay, I decided because of some of the activities I've done, and I'll discuss them as we go through the video, but I've been prompted to actually revisit this as a discussion point, actually. So bearing in mind, yes, I deliver psychic readings. I also do tarot readings. I do Reiki. I understand energy, and I love crystals. I've got a passion for crystals. You know, I've spent a lot of time actually trying to grow my knowledge base, in the directions that I'm interested in, I must say, because when it comes to universal knowledge and wisdom, there is just so much of it out there that, you know, I just don't think it's actually possible for one person to tap into the whole lot of it. And that's not even my ambition. I pursue the areas that I'm interested in. But as part of my pathway, and this is where we end up talking about qualifications, of course, not only am I, you may as well say, metaphysically oriented, I also have a Bachelor of Social Works, Australian Standards, and I have a Masters of Counselling as an undergraduate. I should actually rephrase that. I completed my theory. I didn't do the prac, so I don't have that as a formal qualification. But anyway, where I'm going with this is that all of the content that I design and put up, whether it's on Facebook, whether it is on the YouTube channel, any of the activities that I take are all designed to empower people as part of them overcoming their fears and discomfort, and to what we would call in the metaphysical industry, I think even actually in social work and psychology and that kind of stuff, it's about that, you know, catchphrase, embrace your authentic self. Now, from a spiritual or metaphysical perspective, though, when we talk about embracing our authentic self, we're talking about opening to receiving divine love and recognizing that we are all divine specimens and examples of love. So this is where the chitter chatter is going for today, prompted by the fact that I've got some professional responsibilities as well as a psychic code of ethics. I'm not registered, I must say, with either body these days. I've decided not to, for whatever my reasons are. I'm not going to go into them here, but I still try to apply the ethical standards to my practice. So these are some of the core values that I try to incorporate in the services that I provide to people. So, you know, if we want to stick with the tangible, evidential, mainstream, that kind of stuff, my social work degree, of course, would be up there at the top of my professional responsibilities because that's a legitimate profession. When I say legitimate, I mean accepted by the powers that be, shall we say. And there can be consequences, not a lot, I must admit, for malpractice, certainly within social work. I'm not even going to go down that pathway. But basically, the core principles of social work that I actually admire and respect and encouraged me to pursue that as a profession was that there is this underpinning ethos in our code of ethics that says that if we can't help people, then we should be honest about that. Basically, we all have our limitations, so it's very important as social workers that we know our limits, because the idea is that we do not do harm. If we can't help them, don't harm them, move on. Now, of course, as a social worker, we are there, as I say, for empowerment. Now, people that need empowerment are generally quite vulnerable. And when we talk about vulnerable, it doesn't mean that they're poor, weak, pathetic little things. This took me a lot, actually, to work out for myself. It meant that, actually, I'll be upfront. I was vulnerable at one stage and I had struggled to interpret this. What it meant was that I had so much going on that it would have only taken one or two extra adverse actions towards me. And that can be loss of a job, it can be anything like that. That creates a person to be more vulnerable and less likely to be able to cope with the struggles that they're facing. So when a person is vulnerable and they've got limited capacity to bounce back from whatever struggles and challenges they're facing, then the idea is that we don't take advantage of them, we don't exploit them, and we try and empower them so that they can actually become stronger, that they can build resilience. Now, an important factor for this, based on the direction I'm going with this particular video, is that financial exploitation is considered to be abuse. Mental illness is considered to be a vulnerability for people. Okay, so that's the social work responsibilities. Now, universal law, of course, is something that I've been looking at for many, many years. And there's different laws that are actually, I would say, in alignment with these social work responsibilities and principles, if you like. So, of course, we've got karma, which is the law of threefold return. What you put out there is going to come back to you. And then the other thing, there's another law. Where have I got that one written? I can't find it for right now. Obviously, my transcript's not good enough. But where I'm going with this is there are responsibilities under universal law, and that includes being discerning, looking at your intention. Purity of intent is not always, shall we say, an excuse for doing harm to people. So you've got to have a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of insight, the capacity to recognise in advance what might be the outcomes of certain actions, which this is one of the reasons why we never ever tell a person what they should or shouldn't be doing. Everybody's got free will, they've got free choice, it's up to them to make their decisions. We can point them in a direction, we can give our opinions and thoughts, we can wrap those opinions and thoughts up as being spiritual guidance, if you like. It's not necessarily the case. It just depends on how much inner work that the particular medium or psychic that you're going to is giving you, or that they have done in the past before they actually start going into professional practice. Anyway, moving on with this. So when we talk about universal law and the application of it with the do no harm stuff as well, we then have what is called a psychic code of ethics. And they're many and varied. I did look at the International Psychic Code of Ethics, and I think for the purposes of this video, the best thing that I can do is just say, look, when I've got members written here, this is actually for psychics, so members of the International Psychic Association should take their role responsibly and give any advice as responsibly and accurately as possible. And they shouldn't be judgmental, and any information they give should be in the best interests of the client, and we should at no time imply that we've got 100% accuracy. So that's just for starters. So that business of do no harm, this is the underpinning information, I guess, for the next slide. And I was reminded of this responsibility because, as I've said, I've got a Facebook group that has been dormant probably for the last couple of years. I created it with the aim to provide readings and services to people that couldn't afford to pay for psychic services or spiritual services themselves. So you may as well say, in essence, it was a charity group. Now, it has been dormant, and I'm currently weighing up whether or not I change the name of it and make it Lorena's Labyrinth and all of that kind of stuff, because I've decided that I actually want to be able to do the online readings in a charity form as in the past. But in the past, I used to do about 20 a day and that kind of stuff. So I've had to revisit the guidelines. Gone off on that rabbit warren. I'm revisiting the guidelines for the group I've yet to determine if I will keep it open for the long term, but for now it's there, and I need to make sure that the guidelines are correct. And this is what has prompted me to have this discussion of responsibility of, how would I phrase it? The responsibilities of a psychic toward a person with a psychiatric condition. So, this information that I'm giving is drawing upon my understanding of spiritual law, the Psychic Code of Ethics, and of course, my Bachelor of Social Work. Now, if a person has got a psychiatric condition, they are considered to be very vulnerable. They won't necessarily cope particularly well with any changes. And any extreme changes, let me rephrase. And we need to go gently with that. So, of course, when we talk about mental illness and psychiatric training, there's different forms of it. And from my perspective, I'm always very, very wary when I'm working with people that are mentally unwell. Now, that can be people on the extreme end with schizoaffective disorders or schizophrenia, because they are particularly vulnerable, okay? When it comes to things like predictions, whether they've got hallucinations, delusions, or paranoia, they definitely may not cope at all well with a spiritual or guided reading. And people with anxiety type and depressive disorders do not always cope terribly well with predictions as well. Now, if you've got, I know that depression and anxiety is very commonplace these days. More and more people have it. And if they don't have one or the other, or they have it at intermittent times, they may not have it perpetually with them. It might not be chronic. But the reality is there's some underpinning things that can actually influence why they will not necessarily cope well with predictions. Now, I just want to say here, I'm going to actually explain why. I'll try and keep it brief. Why my preference is, quite often I will turn around and say no to somebody, that I'm not going to deliver a reading for them if they've got these conditions. And by that, I'm referring to a psychic reading or a tarot reading. And this is because if somebody hears voices and I'm opening them up to their psychic gifts, they have to learn to be able to discern between the voice of spirit and wisdom and the voice of whatever negative stuff they've got going around them. So we need to work on them before we can actually go into connecting them, if you like. Well, and it doesn't always take a long time, I've got to say. Now, the other thing I'm going to make the point of too is, if you've got anxiety, if you are honest with yourself and you step back and you reflect on this, you will know within yourself that anxiety is because you're worried about things that might or might not happen in the future. And so therefore, if you get given predictions, a lot of the time people with anxiety will put too much emphasis on the predictions and forget that they've got free will, that they've got choices. And if they don't like the challenges that lie ahead of them, there are certain activities that they can do. Also, if the predictions are quite positive and they're looking really good, they can put too much hope onto those predictions. And predictions are not set in concrete, so it may change down the track. So for people with anxiety, I encourage them to stay present in the here and now, and actually to avoid getting predictive type readings. And what I've seen is people that have got anxiety, they can actually hop from one psychic to the next and maybe get 4 readings in the space of a week or whatever. And if that's the case, it might not be one psychic getting 4 readings in a week. In fact, it rarely is. But they're not going to know that they're actually financially exploiting somebody who's significantly unwell. But if you add up all the money that these people are spending on psychics, it really is very, very unwise. In the case of people with some chronic depression or whatever, and this can be grief, even if somebody has passed away that they loved and they're still coming to terms with it, the whole grief and loss, there is a certain resistance to change there because they don't want it to happen, and that's perfectly understandable. They're sad, they're sorry that this happened, and so they can be stuck on this negative move. Now, I just want to put something into perspective here. There is a difference between The types of depression that I'm talking about that are associated with grief and loss are those people that are stuck in that grief and loss for perhaps 9 years. I can think of a couple of people straight off the bat where their life seems to go on a negative spiral, and it's very, very hard for them to dig themselves out of the abyss of depression because they are stuck in that mourning phase. Now, I'm not judging them. The first person that I think of when I say this actually had 3 deaths in the family and struggled to rebound from it. And I don't think that they actually have. The last I heard, I think they were still stuck in it. But the reality is, so for me, if somebody presents, what I really love is when they turn around and say to me, what do you mean you can't give me a reading? Or what do you mean you're not going to give me a tarot reading or a psychic reading? Because I will say no. And I will say to them, it is because your energy is too scattered. Okay. We need to work on the energy before we actually go into those types of readings. So they might say, well, what do I do? How do I do it? And based on that, I will generally offer a person a what we call an energetic healing. Actually, I'll go onto that slide. Basically, the way I explain it is that if they are in this state, their energy is out of whack, their chakras are out of whack, the auras are misaligned, and all the rest of it. And we need to work on their energy. And that doesn't have to take a long time. In the worst instances, I remember one woman being really significantly psychologically unwell. And what I did to her was I actually gave her some strategy to do daily for 4 weeks because she was so unwell. Okay, that's not the normal practice. I adapt it to whoever I'm approached by, shall we say. So I will give them strategy to work on. I do actually have a video on chakra balancing combined with affirmations. I might link that to the end of the video because this is one of the tools that I will quite often say to people. If they are really, really unwell, do this particular activity at least once every day. And the more you do it, the faster the rebalance occurs, okay? And we're not talking about a short-term thing, okay? You can rebalance your chakras. Anybody can bring in healing and balance themselves in that moment, okay? The key is if we're looking to make lifelong changes, we have to embed it into our behavior, and we have to, this is all part of putting the mouth into action, walking the talk, basically. So I'll give them some activities to do that. I will also potentially, if they ask, so let's say somebody with an illness turned up at my house and immediately I meet them to do a reading. And of course, if I say no to them, I'm going to be losing money. I don't care, just so you know, I do not care. If I decline a person a reading, it doesn't happen that often, but if I do, because on the grounds of they are just so overwhelmed and unwell, I couldn't possibly in good faith take money from them. They might turn around and say to me, well, what can you do for me? And I will say, well, look, I can't give you a predictive reading. I can't give you a psychic reading. I can actually take a look at your aura. I might be able to give you some suggestions, or it really depends on the health and wellness of the person. I might be able to see, and I'm just being very clear here, going back to that psychic code of ethics, I can't claim that I do this 100% because I never know how it's going to work out, okay? But there have been instances where I've been able to take a look at a person's aura and their energy fields and see where the blocks are and help the person to identify the cause so that they can release it and transform the energy with them. But either way, even if that happened in one session, I would still be encouraging them to do this activity that I've got up. So where I'm going to with this is we can be diplomatic, we can be caring still, we can retain our integrity while also caring for people and making sure that those vulnerable people get what they need without exploiting them. Poor little Toby dog. Oh, he is so burned out from having his bath. He's curled up in a small ball feeling sorry for himself. So I'm a little bit grateful for that, actually, I have to admit. Anyway, so the other point of all of this, me revisiting this stuff of ethics, integrity, managing people that have got vulnerability, working with them, and that kind of stuff, is because I'm actually creating the space at home to do face-to-face readings again, because I'm getting right into it. Anyway, where I'm going with this as well is, just in case you're interested and you live in the Perth area, I will be offering paid face-to-face readings at home. They're not free, they're not charity, just putting it out there. And part of me creating this space has meant that I've been buying crystals. So if you watch the last couple of videos, you will know, yes, I've been getting back into them and hooked on them. The other thing too, just a little pity party for myself, I'm actually looking after a coffee table that is made from what they call orbicular, I think it is, orbicular granite. It's white granite with black circles on it. It's absolutely amazing. It is extremely heavy, and I decided that I would put it into the room that I'm preparing, and I actually managed to crush my finger by accident. Suffice to say, it was painful. It was really painful. It was one of those moments where you do it and then you find yourself, it doesn't matter that you're overweight, doesn't matter that you're 60 or whatever, you end up doing this really brilliant pirouette, grabbing a pack of peas as you fall past your freezer on your way to the lounge suite where you just drop down like a sack of potatoes. So anyway, while I was sitting there trying to remedy my pain, I did obviously a bit of energy work with the peas and that kind of stuff. And I sort of said, look, guys, tell me why I did this, to my guides, tell me why I did this. That was a really stupid thing on my part to do. My initial thoughts were, well, I was actually having a bit of negative mind speak at the time because a male had said that he would help me move it because they are very heavy. And of course I was impatient, so I thought I'll do it on my own. And I'm just going to mention here, because there'll be a lot of women like me that turn around and go, well, you know what? That's fine. If you're too busy to do this, it would have only taken us 5 minutes. I'll do it on my own. It'll take me an hour. That'll be fine. And what we do is we grab a towel or some thick fabric, a mat or whatever, and we manage to lift the table on one end. This is how I got this thing happening. And we do the same at the back end, and then we drag bit by bit. We have to, we do it inch by inch, and then we get it where we need it to go, which is what I did. But anyway, I thought, oh, maybe it was because I was having all that negative mind speak about him, letting me down and that kind of stuff before I actually hurt my finger. But I took my own advice. I just want to say, I went and I looked at my book, what is your body telling you when you have these little accidents? And this one said, use your common sense. I mean, really? Gosh, gee. Anyway, I'm well distracted. I've got the room sorted out now, so I'm quite happy with the state that it's in. It's all ready to go. And I do my first reading from home next Thursday. So that's exciting for me. I'm putting my toe back in the water. I'm back at it. I knew I shouldn't have mentioned that the doggy was resting because he's now woken up and he's got active again. Okay, so where I mentioned that I'm reactivating the online group that I've got, I'm also currently in conversations with a local community group about a venue because I'm considering providing some spiritually based activities local to my community, offline. So if you're in Perth and you want to know more about them, subscribe to the channel or like my page on Facebook, because I will be putting information up there. The other thing is too, there's a website called Eventbrite. I'm not promoting this website, okay? I'm just mentioning that this is the website that I will probably go to publicise when I hold events, because I'm not 100% sure where I will do it. But they will be free events, free to attend. And what was I going to say? I'm going out to look at some venues this week, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what these events will be because I like to be a little bit unique in how I deliver. Some of them I might have to charge a door fee. I don't know. It depends on how much it costs to actually rent the space. Or alternatively, and I've thought about this too, is I might set up a donation box. Either way, I've got a few ideas up my sleeve. Stay tuned, okay? The online stuff, the online activities, I'll talk about those in a moment. And I'm in the process of redesigning business cards because I've decided I want to start handing them out as well. So it's kind of exciting times for me, shall we say. So as far as the crystal playlist goes, as an update, look, as I said, I've been over to a local wholesaler. I am convinced that we all need to be visiting our local retailers as opposed to online. The only time I would say not is when you've got a very, very good online verified retailer or wholesaler that you can access. And this is about keeping the costs down. But when I talk about encouraging you to go to your local retailer, this is because it's such high energy when you go in there. It's absolutely, it doesn't matter where you go, it actually doesn't really matter. I haven't been into, I know that there's supposed to be a couple of crystal shops local here that are very popular with people that like crystals, but they're actually run by people that are selling them because they're only interested in the profit. Now, of course, we can all go poo-poo if they're just profiteers, but the reality is they're selling them, okay? Just because they're selling them doesn't mean that the crystals are going to lose whatever metaphysical properties they are. What it means is just that you don't resonate with the people that run the shop. Big deal. It doesn't matter. You don't have to associate with them. But the other thing is whether they're spiritual or not. I mean, I would prefer, just to state the obvious, I would prefer to go to somebody who actually is spiritual that's selling it. And that's because I can talk with them about metaphysical properties of the crystals, where somebody who is only selling them for profit really won't necessarily know. But anyway, what was I going to say? The other reason why I do believe that people need to go into the stores is actually to hold the crystal in your hand before you buy it. It's so important to not only look at it, sometimes the appearance, like if I refer to the seraphinite that I just bought from Ukraine that was sent to me, obviously it's sourced in Russia. Interesting story there, but it didn't look that crash hot in the photograph. But oh my gosh, it was definitely the best piece I could have wanted because visually it speaks to my heart, if that makes sense, and it feels right in my hand. So yes, I'm going to keep encouraging people to go to their local supplier. So as far as the crystal playlist goes, of course, updating you there. If you haven't seen it, I would imagine if you subscribe to the channel, you will have Chrysocolla has been loaded. That one is now published, available for you to see at your leisure. Don't forget timing stamps. Rhodonite has also been published, and I've got to say, this is one that I actually am really interested in getting and having in my collection here at home. And part of the reason is because I actually like my clients to be able to hold crystals, as well as I really like the metaphysical properties of rhodonite. I think it's actually stunning, shall we say. So anyway, that one's been published as well. On Tuesday, you'll be able to access the video on lepidolite. I don't consider that one to be one of my best recordings. I actually, because I've been so busy this week and I've had a lot happening, I kind of had to rush that one out in the end, and it was a little bit overwhelming. But you will still get the content that you actually need in that video for what you want to know, what you need to know about lepidolite. And I just want to make a mention, this one is one of my favourite crystals, and it's supposed to be good for pain relief. So, of course, that was on my mind yesterday when I hurt my finger. I think the fingernail's going to go black, actually. Whatever. So the Larimar video, that's still under construction. I've done most of it. I just need to actually record the audio for it, and then I'll be able to upload it. But that one's due to be published on Thursday. You'll be able to access that. Larimar, I've got to say, is one of my favourite crystals. Well, you must get sick of hearing that. It's an absolutely beautiful crystal that I absolutely love. So I said that I would be talking about the online activities that I intend to be doing. Now, I've been talking about this for the last week or so. I actually, I didn't put it on my page. What I did was an online reading in the group. So I'm working out that method of delivering that. So obviously, I'm not going to be doing 20 a day like I did in the past. I'll probably be looking at doing maybe 5 a week. And in the meantime, I did test it out, see if I was still capable of doing it. I did a reading in the group, and it's a recorded reading. It's a video, it's a reel, and I've loaded it in there. Now, I do aim to actually put them up, obviously de-identified, on Facebook. So they're promo type ones. I intend to put promo ones up as well. And, anyway, whatever. We'll see how that pans out. I'm still planning on it. It's still in progress, but it's almost there. So I forgot to mention on the other slide, and I really should have, the reason why they're not being delivered yet online or through YouTube is because I actually need, I feel as part of my ethical and professional responsibility, putting up the how I work, how I operate, how I deliver my readings and services, and also the limitations, of course, because they are there, and the terms and conditions and the disclaimer, which is bottom line, you must be over the age of 18 to receive a reading from me, and you cannot hold me liable. We can't guarantee any predictions. Okay, if a prediction doesn't come true, or it comes true and you didn't want it to, onus of responsibility is on the person that takes the reading, because we've got free choices, and I will be encouraging you to follow your own intuitive guidance after you receive a reading. In the meantime, of course, we have these playlists. I'm not going to keep harping on about them. The only one that's not up there, because I haven't actually really started it, is Reiki, and I'm not sure about how to promote that one online or how to share that information with you online. But yes, I do Reiki. I am a Reiki teacher. There's a number of different modalities that I'm attuned to. I actually love it. I love the energy, and I'm more than happy to share that knowledge with people as well. I've just got to work out the way to do that, and I've got enough on my plate for right now. But yeah, I have been trying to consciously gather knowledge, that's not the best way of describing it. I have consciously been collecting knowledge for my spiritual path for the last 25 years. There was a time many years ago when I first entered into it where I also was a believer. You hear a lot of people saying, I've got gifts, I can't control it. You wouldn't want to be me. It's so hard. It's hard. I see things I don't want to see. I'm a victim of my gifts. I wouldn't say that I was ever quite that bad, although I know some people are, but I certainly believe that I had no control over them. And then as time has progressed, I've realised, yes, actually we do have some control. If we are seeing things we don't want to see at inappropriate times, like illness in a person's aura when they're bending over the freezer section, we might want to take a good look at our boundaries. I might actually make a video about that next week. I'll see how I feel about that, because I had an issue this week when I went into the crystal shop, actually, with somebody trying to read my aura without asking permission, and I could see and tell what she was doing. That's the problem when you're a psychic, when somebody's misusing their gifts, and she certainly was. So I've got to look at that too. But that's a conversation I can talk to you about next week as well. So for now, my friends, I'm going to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. I was really hopeful I would manage to get this video under 30 minutes today. Never mind, such is life. Okay. So bearing all that in mind, I'm going to say, as I said, thank you very much. Catch you on the next video, I hope. If you're new to the channel, I hope you've managed to find information that's useful to you. If you're a returning visitor, yay, thank you so much. All right, anyway, take care. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye for now.